mic's working, but we can be really, thank you, mystical IT folks. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Tonight is our tri-community meeting with the Cumberland Town Council, the North Yarmouth Selectboard, and the MSAD 51 Board of Directors. It is Thursday, May 15th, 2025 at 6 o'clock. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thanks to all the folks who are here joining us in person, and thanks to everyone at home watching. Very warm welcome to the MSAD 51 Board of Directors, the North Yarmouth Select Board, my fellow Cumberland Town Councilors, as well as the amazing town and district staff. So before we get into our wildly robust and exciting agenda, I think we should just go around. We're going to do name, where you live, and what you get the biggest kick out of in public service, just to keep it fun. I think Mr. Vale, why don't you...
No.
Why don't you go first?
I am not starting this.
Okay, well, I can start, and then you can have 30 seconds to think. So, my name's Tig Filson. I live in Cumberland Center. What I've had the most fun in public service is probably when the power goes out and we turn town hall into a warming center, and there's like coffee and wacky people and just people who just stepping all over each other. It's a fun, and it's kind of a bright light in a sea of darkness. So come on, Bob, you had 30 seconds to think.
So public service isn't just being here. Public service for me has taken a lot of different shades and colors over the years, and on the planning board, on the school board. But I think probably the best place that public service has meant to me is in the Lions Club. And giving back to the community, while this is part of it, giving back as part of the Lions Club is a unique. It's unique. It's seeing people come together. It's seeing money raised, and it's seeing real output and real help to the community and those around us. So that's it.
Love it, Councilor Thorson. Or Mike Sharon.
Thank you. I am Denise Thorson. I live on, what are we calling it, East Cumberland now? Total and middle-ish. Not quite in the center to be called a center person, but, this is what we're working with. My favorite, I guess, would be the people I've met and the people I am working with. People I wouldn't have otherwise met if not for me stepping into this position, including community members. Good times.
Ron Kopp, born in West Cumberland, still reside in West Cumberland. I have a lot down in the Methodist Cemetery, so I'm not going anywhere. Been on the council for 18 and a half years. June 10th, I will be done. It's been a long haul. I have a genuine interest in what goes on in this town because I'm a lifer. I'm not going anywhere. We see a lot of people come and go. Bob's 12-year wonders. We've seen tons of them come and go. And it's getting tougher and tougher every year. I mean, and the traffic's getting heavier around here. You don't know your neighbors anymore, and it's a changing world. But I can't say that I've been bored here. It's been fun for 18 years, but I've been here long enough, so it's time to step down. So.
I didn't know stepping down was an option. I'm Chris Bolduc. I'm the Assistant Town Manager for Cumberland. I've been in Cumberland my whole life. After 35 years working for the town, I've seen the good, bad, and ugly, so I really can't narrow down one thing. So I'm going to move on.
Understandable.
I'm Diane Barnes. I'm the town manager of North Yarmouth. I live in Lisbon, and I've been in municipal government for almost 39 years. And I think what makes me proud is going to a community and making a positive difference, and also working with great employees that I call a team, and we all do it together, and we all make each other shine, because whatever I do that's positive, I can't do it without the help of my employees. And I also can't do it without the support of my elected officials. And I have to say that most of the residents in the towns that I've worked in are really good to work to meet and to also work with, especially on boards and committees.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Berry. I am the chair of the North Yarmouth Select Board. Live in North Yarmouth, too. And I would say, other than the really novelty big scissors that we get to use when there are openings of new businesses, my favorite part is finding other people in our community who are as passionate about making our community better as I am, and sometimes way more so. And I'll put out a little shout out to what I often call my best night of the month, which is when I get to go spend time with the North Yarmouth Waste Reduction Committee. Soon, again, maybe. And just the joy and passion that people have in finding that beautiful intersection of impacting our environment and lowering our taxes, and kind of the way that that works together it's pretty beautiful.
Carl Sear. I am North Yarmouth resident, Farm and Forest District, and I think what I enjoy the most about, I'm not from here, so what I enjoy the most is getting to meet people in the community and hearing the stories and understanding the history of, both long history and things that happened 10, 15 years ago that I may not totally understand, and understanding contextualized from long-term residents and seeing the fabric of the community come together. And that's a perspective I would not have if I had not served on the select board.
I'm Susie Dowling, North Yarmouth Select Board. Currently, I live in Village Center. I used to live in Farm and Forest. And I've only been on the Select Board for, I think, a month and a half. So, I don't have a lot of experiences yet to draw from. But I echo what Andrea said. I think, in this role and then previously volunteering for the town, I just really enjoy getting to make connections with other people in the town that I wouldn't have met but for the fact that we care about North Yarmouth.
Thank you. I'm Amy Hale. I am on the North Yarmouth Select Board, also in Farm and Forest. And I think one of the things that, looking back over 3 years, I appreciate learning the most is how the town works. I think a lot gets taken for granted. I know I certainly did, driving around town, and things happened, and to really have an up-close look at how town government works and how town staff, what they do, what they commit to, and a lot goes unseen. And I think even watching things on the national level now, I feel like I have a better understanding and appreciation, frankly, for all that it is. So,
I'm Sarah Rose, and I live in East North Yarmouth, Maine. And it's definitely field and forest. Been in town for 29 years, so I wasn't born here, but am getting ready to graduate my 4th daughter from the district, and have 23 years caretaking for children. And my passion is connecting all of the people that do such good work at the school with all of the people in town and bringing the North Yarmouth perspective to the school board.
Good evening. I'm Tim Valenti. I am from North Yarmouth. Getting a kick out of, I guess it would surprise a lot that ironically, I'm probably one of the more verbose people on the board, but I am an introvert at heart. And so when I moved back to Maine, my wife was like, you need to get out and see the people. And I'm like, well, we moved to Maine to see less people. And so I think being able to connect with more people, I didn't expect before joining the board, the amount of subcommittees, the amount of time you would spend with residents. I meet people a lot and think, did I know that person? Did I see them on this committee? Did I see them on that committee? Did they come to this board meeting? So it gets me out into the community and engaged in the community that I probably wouldn't ordinarily do that. And so in that note, I also want to thank, there's a lot of people behind the scenes, like my partner and wife who watches the kids, so I'm allowed to do this, and we all have people at home that allows us to have this amount of time outside there. So I just want to thank them as well. So thanks for having us, and we're excited for the meeting.
Jesse Lamar Vincent, Range Road, Cumberland, which is, I think, still in the center, but feels field and foresty, at least where I am. What do I get a kick out of? I think being on the school board, getting a peek under the hood. I think both my kids are at Maple I, so as a school board member, I got to tour all the schools, meet a lot of incredible administrators and staff and facilities folks and teachers that I probably wouldn't have run into otherwise. And I knew we had good schools according to the numbers, but meeting all the people that make the school what it is has been really fulfilling and amazing. And I think I'm privileged to get to do that.
Kim Vine. I think I live about equidistant from Denise, but to the west. So I'm West Cumberland adjacent. Everything everybody has said is true, so it's a little hard when you're at the end to try to think of something original. But I know that one thing for me is when things work the way they're supposed to, because we all have jobs to do. The towns, the school district would not function if we were not here to do those jobs. And so when we've done our jobs, when everything runs the way that it is supposed to, and you just see it, kind of like you were saying, Amy, when you see how it runs and you realize that you were able to be a part of that and make that happen. That's going to be my answer.
Great, thanks, Kim. Okay, and well, I'll do mine and I'll shoot it to Megan. So gives her a minute to settle in. Take a breath, right? So I'm Leanne Candora, North Yarmouth, Field and Forest, Farm, Field and Forest, all of the things. So I have so appreciated the connections that I've made through my service for the past 3 years on the school board. I've worked remotely for a number of years. I'm very grateful for that. And being able to find ways to connect with the community that I live in has been really important. And I had looked to the school board because of the incredible experience my kids have had up to the point I ran in the school district and wanting to be part of it. And it's given me such an incredible perspective on what has made this district work, and to help it continue to work for us and our community in the future, and to be part of that. And I've been chair for the past 2 years, which has been really an honor. And the most, I guess, interesting part of being chair, which I didn't even think about, is the fact that I get to sign the diplomas, which I did today, which is really cool, and then shake hands on graduation day. So that's been a really fun perk of being in this role, and I'm very grateful. And I'm running for another 3 years, and since I'm unopposed, I guess you'll see me back here again. And then, Megan, do you want to go? So, name, town, and what you've enjoyed. How did you frame it?
What you get a kick out of public service.
I should have known. Yeah, should have known. I'm Megan Lichter, school board in Cumberland. I apologize for being late. There was a big accident. What I get a kick out of, 2 things come to mind. One is that I have loved the people that I've met. I've gotten to interact with a whole bunch of people that I may not have met otherwise, and that's been amazing. And interact in ways that other people feel passionate. So last year, I was the chair of the communications committee and brought people in from the community that are really good communicators and do PR and do marketing and know how to do the socials. And that's not stuff that I do. And so it's been really fun to meet people who love what they do and get to see them do it in a community setting. The second thing is that my day is spent doing science and medicine, and it's really easy to just live in that world. All the journals on my bedside are about skin diseases. And so to get out of that world and like enter this where we're talking about finance and facilities and things like that, it's just been an amazing opportunity to learn more about our schools and our town. And I love it. Thanks.
Jeff Porter, the superintendent. Been in public education for 31 years, I think. It's this coming month. And really, yes, I'm not from Cumberland. However, I did live in Cumberland when I was 4 years old for a year. So I guess you could say I'm like the 50-year wonder. But grew up in neighboring Yarmouth. Spent a lot of time actually at Greeley when I was a kid. Always have had a fondness for this district and this area. Love it. Never thought I would be back here as superintendent. Never thought I'd be a superintendent, to be honest. But in public service, I always go back to my roots. And right before I came to this meeting, one of the things I try to do a lot is remind myself why I do this. And as much as I enjoy all the initiatives and the meetings that go with this this work and all of the pieces that go with being a school leader, I always like to go back to the roots, and that's what the students and where I started in the classroom. So I was at a baseball game right before I came here, and I'll tell you, it is just to watch the kids having fun, and was having withdrawal because my son used to be a baseball player in high school when he was in high school. So, but just watching the kids. And just knowing that they're getting the benefit of everything that we do here, and that it doesn't just happen by happenstance. There's so many things that we do to make this, and I credit the community and these three boards for putting the conditions in place to make this an incredible community for people to live and work and go to school in. So thank you so much. That's my, there you go.
All right, thank you. My name's Scott Poulin. I'm the school district's Director of Finance, HR, and Operations. I've been in municipal and school operations for about 35 years, probably about 28 here, I think, at this time. I live in Freeport. One of my greatest joys here is having had long-term relationships with many of the people who I'm looking at in the room right now that I've worked with for a number of years, even behind me. And so that's one of the kicks that I get out of this. And then certainly at the end of the day, while many of us even here have the opportunity to work in private sector, I chose to work in public sector and schools to make a difference for students and the communities.
I'm Andrew Magoon over on Cumberland Foreside. And I would say one of the things it was mentioned earlier about seeing the behind the scenes and how everything works, and then learning about what goes on to make that work, to make sure that, you know, lights are on, streets are plowed, et cetera, but then also to the natural resources that we have here maintained and all that, and seeing the behind the scenes of that has been, I think, rewarding for me. And then the chance to meet new people that, you know, either have been here their entire lives or have been here for, you know, a few years, and see their impact on the town, whether they're sitting around this table or they're behind the scenes that are allowing us to do the work we do, or they're the ones up at the podiums asking us to do something different or to look at something else. It's really opened my aperture of what Cumberland is and who Cumberland is.
Save the best for last. Myself. Just kidding. Bailey Douglas. I live over in West Cumberland near Ronnie. We're besties. You need to wear a helmet, Ron. My favorite thing about public service, or things that I get a kick out of, are I lived a very transient life prior to moving to Maine, and this has been a whole new world for me, engaging with a community, living somewhere, understanding how it works, and just the continued education of understanding everything that goes into making, like Andrew said, streets get plowed, kids going to school. It's just keeps me happy and engaged. So happy to be here.
Love it. Thank you all for humoring us with a little bit of an icebreaker tonight. So next item on the agenda is public discussion or public comment. We do welcome anyone in the audience who'd like to come up to the podium and share anything that they'd like to share with us. We do ask that you're going to keep your comments to 3 minutes so everyone has a chance to speak and so that we can hit our pretty robust agenda. And just as a heads up and to manage expectations on communication, while it's not our practice to respond because there are so many of us during this portion of the meeting, know that we're both listening and we will do any necessary follow-up after the meeting. So anyone in the public who'd like to come chat with us? Oh, yeah, come on up. And if you would just tell us your name and where you live, and also Cumberland or North Yarmouth.
Absolutely. Dave Noonan, 9 Meadow Lane in Cumberland. I know it doesn't necessarily fit this format here, but I was just want to remind everybody that is here and thank you for your service first and foremost, but I also like to remind everybody that they advocate for the citizens, not for administrators or certain individuals. It seems like there's a lot of advocation going on for certain individuals as opposed to just our citizens. So just want to really remind everybody here that you guys are voted in and you're supposed to advocate for citizens first. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Is there anyone else that'd like to come up as part of public discussion, public comment? All right, we will close public comment and move on to the first or the third item. We've asked each town and the district to come with kind of a higher level overview of what you've been up to. Andrea, you want to go first?
Sure. So on behalf of North Yarmouth, first of all, I just really want to appreciate everybody being here. It's so important for us to have these joint meetings regularly. I think it creates really wonderful opportunities for discussion and sharing an opportunity. And this particular bullet point on our agenda, I think, is shared by all of us, that it is such an opportunity for us to know what's happening on each of these boards and to identify how we can work together and what those possibilities are. So with North Yarmouth right now, as a select board and a town meeting town, we are deep in budget season. Next week, we will be, as a select board and the budget committee, signing the warrants for town meeting, which is happening in June. So we are still actively working on our budget, as well as a number of both land use ordinance updates, parks updates, and a number of other pieces that will go into effect. So this is really our get all our ducks in the row time of year and move through with all the things that we've been kind of working on and building up to as we get to this point. When it comes to the budget, North Yarmouth Select Board has taken a prioritization of staff approach with our budget, advocating for a 5% cost of living raise and increased coverage of health insurance for each of our staff, knowing that with a very small staff, so we have 17 total, but not all full-time, 17 individuals employed in our town, that there are so many shared responsibilities and training, 2 years, right, of training to get up and ready to be an assistant town clerk or other types of really complicated office roles. And we have so many staff who are wearing multiple hats that we're really trying to prioritize retention and creating a cost of living increase that will help people to feel valued and staying there. And that really is a key piece. We are also at the same time thinking a lot about community engagement and what it means to be part of an active North Yarmouth government. So with town meeting coming up in June, we hope everybody from North Yarmouth will be there to join us. And In addition, we have been doing a lot of appointment of new committee members. There's been kind of a wave of folks who are excited to get involved. And so we're really thrilled to see having a full planning board, having a number of folks on other committees that have had seats that have been vacant for quite some time. So we're excited to see that uptick in participation and look forward to continuing to promote those opportunities. And one of those new opportunities is with youth participation. So similar to the way that the school board works, we've just passed a policy to have a youth participant on a number of the different committees within the town. So Leanne and Jeff and board look out for conversations with us where we'll be crafting the practice and the application process and hope in September to roll it out with the new school year. And then finally, there are a lot of other activities happening, and as the flowers are poking through the ground and the leaves are coming out, we're spending a lot of time thinking about what's happening outside in North Yarmouth. That includes making sure we have enough public works staff and supporting them as they go through their cleanup work. But also, we are kicking off our partnership with the town of Yarmouth around the Royal River. That meeting is next week, and we'll be kind of setting the ground work for long-time partnership similar to what in particular we have in this meeting, but also in the joint standing committee that we have with Cumberland. Our open space planning committee is continuing on their march towards an open space plan, which we hope will be coming out within the next fiscal year. And there are a lot of updates to our parks ordinance that will be in town at town meeting. So lots of things going on inside, outside, with staff, with community, and yeah, looking forward to a really wonderful next year.
Stuff. Leanne? Need a mic. I mean, I can just talk, but that's fine too. I mean, I guess I'd prefer without a mic, but here we go. Thank you to Andrea for mentioning student representation. I did just want to say we are so grateful for the student reps that we have on the board. And mostly the reason they're not here tonight is a pure scheduling error where they were not included on the appointment. And so I apologize to them because then they reached out. They're like, oh, I saw this meeting. They're so good. They're like, saw this meeting, but we didn't get the materials. Like, I'm so sorry. You study for finals. And as probably most of you might know, the students who sit on our board and in our committees are also some of the busiest students at the school too. So they're usually coming in hot from softball games or other sporting events as well, in addition to sitting on our board. And I'm really glad that the town, and I think both towns have looked to engage students because there's such an asset to have their voices. So this, I think I've saw this coined like Maycember somewhere recently. May feels as busy as December does, and you'll certainly see that as you even driving here, seeing all the baseball and softball games going on. There is a lot going on to try to wrap up the school year. I think pretty much every night you can find something happening at the GCA, and just incredible ways that we're helping, honor the students and what they've done, especially in high school with graduation coming up, which is June 1st. And so there's just a lot going on, and spirits seem very high, is what I hear in wrapping up this year. And boy, is the campus busy. We'll be going into later on in the agenda about the building project and the one campus model in detail, but in addition to just everything that's going on at the school right now to wrap up this school year, the administration has also been working very hard on transitioning and getting ready for the new school model, which will be a great configuration, and really the years of work that go into that. So not only, the building, but also the people, which are our most important assets for our community, which also makes me touch on the budget. So the district budget meeting was last Thursday, so a week ago. Many of us were over at the GCA for the district budget meeting, which was a vote on the budget.
and it did pass. I think we had 100 people in attendance, and it was voted 80 to 20 to move that to the ballot in June. And so much work went into Finance Committee administration, getting ready to have all those budgets. Our budget comes pretty early in the year, I think a little earlier than most of the town budget processes. So really happy to be able to move that forward. And I think as anybody who's read a lot of the communication about the budget, a lot of the increases were due to continuing to invest in our personnel and our enrollment increases. So that's another theme, and we'll touch on it later on the agenda. We're continuing to be a growing district. And so part of that this summer will include replacement and increase in the modulars behind the middle school just to get us over that edge. We have this bubble that's coming up that will be directly impacting the middle school over the next 2 years before the school opening date. So in addition to all the work that's already started on campus for the One School project, we also have a number of other summer projects going on to support our current enrollment while we get ready for the new school. And let's see, the last day of school, in case anybody hasn't marked their calendars yet, is I think officially now, unless I guess we lose power or something else happens, is June 17th is the last day of school. So a little over a month away.
If you lose power, you can come here.
Oh, there we go. We'll send all the kids over.
Phil Shane never let me bring the karaoke machine, but I'm going to get there one day. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Andrea. For Cumberland, just kind of real quick, one of the biggest things we've kind of kicked off is our revaluation. So our town assessor is doing kind of a full soup to nuts reval of all real property in town, the goal of which is to ensure all property assessments reflect their fair market value as of April 1st, 2026, and everyone is paying their kind of an equitable share of their accurate property values, not what might have been their 2013 property value or anyway, so it's really kind of there about establishing equity. And Chris, correct me, keep me honest, when's the last time we did a reval? Well, no one can remember, so clearly it's time.
Bob, 8 years?
It's been a while. It's been a while. Moving on. We're also super excited. We just kicked off the comprehensive plan in January, which is kind of the goal is to really develop or kind of update the long-term vision for the town. So if you're not familiar with the comprehensive plan, it covers everything from economic development to commercial zoning to land use. We're super excited because it's also really about robust public engagement. So surveys and meeting kind of face-to-face with folks to understand what their priorities are and how we're really kind of bringing all those voices together to shape the community. We have a really awesome MSAD 51 rep on the comp plan. Big shout out to Jesse Lamar Vincent over there. That was a really intentional thing that we did, not Jesse particularly, though we're thrilled to have him, but kind of in the spirit of what Leanne and Andrea said about kind of meeting more and kind of cross-pollinating with ideas, same way that Bailey sits on the building committee for the new school project. That's been a really important thing to all of us, and we're really excited for that work to continue. What else? We are doing a long-range plan for Twin Brook, which is really around kind of the management, development over the next decade. It's going to look at everything from current conditions to future needs to infrastructure and usage trends and sustainability, and just also, of course, looking at things like accessibility and the management and the responsiveness to long-term community goals and priorities. And I am not the numbers person, so I'm going to punt to my lovely Vice Chair, Bailey Douglas, who also serves as our Finance Chair, to give us an update give us no updates, but an overview of the FY26 budget.
Thank you, Chair Filson. Just want to start by thanking Mr. Chris Bolduc, Helene, and Matt for their hard work through the budget process. It was a big win. I know some of you know we had a gap in our finance director for quite some time, and so having Helene back was a huge win for us. We went through 7 budget meetings from March through early May, took a deep dive into each cost center, and really took a close look at some of those variable revenues to ensure we were aligned with where things were at market rate, to help offset a lot of increases moving into this fiscal year. We had a really cleared, shared focus between the town and I think the town council to really make sure everything was as lean as possible, which brought us in with just a 2.7% increase. Just over $183,000, which I think is a really awesome reflection of a lot of hard work by everyone here. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. All right, awesome sauce. So next up, item 4, we have opportunities for shared services for the FY27 budget year. So really, we wanted to kind of have an opportunity to brainstorm together, talk about what shared services means to all of us. I'm going to throw out a question of, for anyone who wants to maybe kick it off. I'm not just looking at you, Bob, but whether it's shared equipment or coordinated purchasing or kind of consolidating personnel, or do folks have feelings about things they want to start exploring? Where do we start? And I'll stop talking now.
Okay, I'm going to run with this one for a minute. We cannot keep doing the same thing year after year after year after year and expect a different outcome. And I think, we as a wholesome group have to come together and explore some ideas that we haven't done in the past. Recently, Andrea and I and the town of Falmouth and Yarmouth got together with our managers and the county managers, and on the premise of talking about a conversation about fire and rescue services, how we might do things better or differently. And out of that conversation, the group really reached out and said, let's not leave anything else. Let's open the table up to talk about other services. And one of that was public works, rescue, fire, police, even back office services. And so I think the opportunities are there for us to start doing things differently. Out of that conversation, a couple of the people that were at that meeting said, this is all well and good, but 70% of our budgets are school-based in our communities. And so having spent 15 years on the school board, I recall when John Baldacci was governor, he said, we need to provide 55% for education. But he said, I need to know what that is. And out of that came essential programs and services. And that was the benchmark. Well, to my mind's eye, essential programs and services of 20 years ago is not what it is today. And so the idea is, and as the idea was back then, the challenge was to consolidate some school systems. Well, none of us are really, want to give up our local police force. Nobody wants to give up their local fire department. And we all love our local schools, but it does come at a cost. So the challenge, I think, for the 3 entities here is to say, let's take everything off the table and let's have a real conversation. What can we do differently? And the challenge to you, to the school department, the administrators, and the leadership is reach out to Yarmouth, reach out to Falmouth, and Gray, but how can we do things differently? How can we share services? How can we share programming? And how can we save tax dollars? Because that's really what it is. We live in a very expensive part of the state. We hear from people that say, I can't afford to live here anymore. My taxes are exorbitant. And, so I think that the responsibility for all of us is to try to do something a little bit differently than we've been doing. Let's look for different outcomes. It's time to consolidate purchasing. It's time to consolidate staffing, because we all virtually do the same thing, and we should be looking at ways to do it better. So, anyways.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
I'll just follow up about the meeting and some of those conversations with the us with also the towns of Yarmouth and Falmouth. And in particular, the meeting that we had most recently was really centered around, as Bob said, getting an update from the county and the county administrators around what was happening with some of the fire consolidation and fire strategy. And it was really valuable for me, and I think, Bob, for you as well, to really start to understand the scope and breadth of that really powerful and impressive work that the county is doing around these questions of optimizing fire services. So, we're already providing mutual aid in our region, but there are, questions around how calls are coming in, how they're being tracked, optimization opportunities that some towns, often the more small towns, are taking advantage of, that are services offered by the county, whereas others aren't. So we use, county call center, and that's been hugely helpful for us. And I think this conversation was kind of a really beautiful opportunity for all of us to say, here's something that we're doing that we can offer as a model. Cumberland and North Yarmouth and Yarmouth are all working together around animal control officers. So how does that look? What does that look like? Is there something Falmouth could learn from that? In North Yarmouth, we've gone full on in with the town of Gray in contracting for code enforcement. So, that being a huge savings for us as the town of North Yarmouth, getting high quality, very, advanced career professionals to be able to come in at a much lower cost for us, especially without having to cover benefits or other pieces. And I just found the kind of mutual sharing of ideas for optimization to be really effective. One of the biggest pieces that came from that was was this question of what are the low-hanging fruits, and that's one of the pieces that I'm excited for us to talk about as these three boards. Where are there opportunities for us to optimize around paper purchasing or office supplies? Are there places where janitorial services could be shared? Are there other elements where we can really be thinking creative and out of the box? I think the interesting piece about that conversation was we're the only ones with this shared school district. And so it was a really, I think there were pros and cons in that everybody was presenting in each scenario. Here, because there's three of us, we actually, I think, have some really interesting opportunity to think strategically about how we can work as three boards together, compared to Yarmouth, who, yes, has some controls that we may not as boards or councils have on the school budget or those pieces, but I think they were somewhat jealous of some of the opportunities for optimization that we have. So that, for me, is a big reason why I've been pushing this conversation over the last few years about, how can we be smarter? And if we don't know, then we can't move that way. And I'll just close with a small, my work-based example, which is there was a meeting of a number of different land trusts, and two land trusts right next to each other purchased a tens of thousands dollar expensive tool, the same tool, to do the same work that they only needed a few times a year, and they're right next to each other. The opportunity to converse and go in together was never on the table because they weren't talking. And so I think that is a really good cautionary tale for us, that we have this opportunity to talk, to be strategic, and to think about things that are coming.
Yeah, please. So I do want you to know that we are talking, and as early as today, we were talking with the school, or I was talking with the school of an opportunity that we might be able to work together on. So at this point, we'll get together with members of our team and have discussions on that. But I just want you to know that sometimes these conversations are happening already. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. And I've been on in multiple meetings where there has been an opportunity, but sometimes something has fallen through the cracks and we can't follow through on it. But we are doing it, and it's not just with Cumberland or the school, it's with the other surrounding communities like Gray and New Gloucester, and then even with Yarmouth, that we're having these discussions. But And if they pan out, then we'll bring it to the boards, but if not, then we really don't talk about them, but they are happening.
Yeah, and Diane, thanks for saying that, because I do think we might just want to touch on the context that I think is missing a bit, is the fact that there are so many shared services already happening between the towns and district right now, and I bet there's people on the school board, because I know we've had some of these conversations at the leadership level, and we know that the town managers and the superintendent's office has been talking and doing this for a while. And so I think if you were just to kind of jump in and hear this conversation, it would sound like, oh, we're just starting to talk about this, and this is happening in very real ways currently. And maybe we can just take a couple minutes to touch on some of those ways it's already happening. I can probably go off of what I know, not as concretely as Scott and others do, but do you want to just take a minute to...
Yeah, Scott can talk about a lot of the operational pieces. We also do educational conversations too. We have regional pre-K. The state is moving us in a pre-K direction to take over 3-year-olds in addition to the 4-year-olds who have disabilities. So we're in conversations right now and in meetings with really most of the county school districts to try to start working this through so that we have some efficiencies when we end up taking this on. So there's a lot of educational-based pieces that don't necessarily intersect with the two towns. And then Scott will talk about a lot of the operational pieces that have been going on for many years as well.
Sure. First one I'd start with is, Bob, you maybe remember when you were on the school board that our office actually took on Eustis and Andover and did the accounting for another school district. So we have a history of doing that and taking on all the payroll and all the other things of that. And we actually brought in revenue to the district when we went through that. But the other things that we've done in the community, and we've had both communities, is we've had a lot of relationship, one with a shared town facility, which we use with the school district for the bus garage and public works. So we have that, which, we actually have a lease with the town, which actually saves us money in terms of not having to have built a brand new bus garage to house our fleet. We also have had a sharing of staff down to that facility as well over time, and have continued to have more conversations about sharing of staff in the building as well, such as mechanic. As recently as today, we had conversations, as Diane had mentioned, around some shared positions as well that may help us in some of those areas. In North Yarmouth, we actually do refinishing of the floors at West Custo and cleaning in the community center because our staff have been trained in that and do that, and that's like thousands of dollars in savings on a gym floor. Refinishing that. We also do sharing with custodial services with the town of Cumberland. We clean many of Cumberland's facilities, and in return, we get snow plowing for the district. And so those are just some of the minor things. The town of Cumberland, with the rec program, uses the school district's facilities, generates revenue from before and after care and summer camps, which helps offset funds for the taxpayers with those as well. Again, with some of the outside uses of our GCA and some of the other uses of our facilities, we generate revenue from that as well. So those are just a few of the things that we do in some of the shared services, but we're always talking, and we have a long history with both the community of North Yarmouth and with Cumberland of looking at shared services over time and actually carrying them out and doing them.
Yeah, just other examples are like Twin Brook. We have a lease with the town of Cumberland to use the fields, as everybody knows, for athletics, which is a huge, just beautiful space, and also a great, because we don't have the space on campus to be able to do that. We have relationships with other neighbors like North Yarmouth Academy and uses our facilities. We use their facilities for athletics as well. And we share staff. We have longstanding practice of sharing staff with the Yarmouth school system. And we also have safety plans that intersect with our neighboring school districts as well. Those are just some examples that we're trying to give you.
That's the 99-year lease on Brooks.
Yeah, the eternal so-called 99-year lease.
And for me, then the open question, I think part of why we wanted this on the agenda is, like wanting to do more? Where are the new opportunities, or maybe ones that had been tried previously and may not have worked at that time, that we may want to look at to try again? And that's where I think we're sort of looking to everybody, you know, in this room, like what are some of these ideas that we can start exploring? I know we've talked a lot about cooperative purchasing and what opportunities are there, and just talking and about the example that was given around the piece of equipment, making sure that those connections are there, so when any entity is buying a piece of equipment, to reach out and say, hey, do you have this, or are you using it? Is there something that we could do together? So I think we just want.
I just want to also point out that there are a lot of opportunities between Cumberland and North Yarmouth, including, you know, the ACO, we share the library, we share rec, and those different pieces as well. I don't want to leave those off the table. I think those are huge pieces to which we have a really nice relationship. Yeah, and I think for me, when I consider the opportunities, I feel like one of the places where I hope that we can start is, what are the places where either the school is doing something for North Yarmouth or vice versa, or the school and Cumberland have a relationship, and can we look at how that could play out in parity in the other town? And, you know, are there opportunities with spaces that we can actually get some kind of apples to apples comparison around the sharing of different spaces, so we understand kind of the you know, we're using this space and in exchange we're doing this. What are those places? The third area I'd love to look at, yeah, in terms of like cooperative purchasing, or just like, you know, purchasing of office supplies and paper, which seems quite small, but actually can be a fairly substantial place where, as a small town, you know, we're not as big we don't get as good a deal because we don't use nearly as much paper as like the school does. So are there places where we can take a look and see if going together or joining an already existing partnership could help us to move forward and to find some additional savings?
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sorry.
No.
It's my first time here. So definitely love the sentiment. I think from an efficacy or efficiency perspective, I feel like it would be helpful to say, okay, you know, the next time we meet, do we ask like the town leaders and school leaders to come back to us with more options? Like, what are we thinking as far as like next steps go? Because I think from an operational perspective, I can't provide a ton of insight on like what those items are, or what the cross-pollination could be across the three communities. So I think unless people have like specific items, you know, outside of Andrea, what you just mentioned, I wonder if like the next most efficient way to move this forward would be, okay, we're meeting in August, you know, if we can have some sort of overview on options for next steps, that would be great, kind of thing. I don't know, Bob? Outside of your sentiments, yeah. I don't think that can be accomplished by August.
So I think I'll issue a challenge to the school, to the district, to the leadership. The commitment has been made by Yarmouth, Falmouth, North Yarmouth, and Cumberland to continue the conversation and to engage in that work, if you will. I think the challenge that I would offer to the school district is, you are part of two communities. I would expect you to reach out to your neighbors in Falmouth and Yarmouth and say, how can we share administrative services? How can we, and begin a conversation, engage with the leadership, because I think that there's opportunity for you to do a lot more. And I think it's a mindset, you know, all right, we're used to just doing business for the town of Cumberland. We're used to plowing the roads. But as an example that I gave at the meeting was, you know, when I drive from Cumberland to Falmouth on a winter day, the snow is plowed bare on Route 9 until I get to the town line in Falmouth. And they're usually 5, 6 inches of snow. And I said, why should the plow truck from Cumberland stop at the town line? why doesn't he plow all the ways down to the Rotary? And conversely, why doesn't Falmouth plow the whole length of Blackstrap? I said, we need to think about doing things differently. So, do we need a curriculum coordinator for each school system? Is it because I don't believe the educational system between Yarmouth and Falmouth is that much different than Cumberland. It's probably the 3 top districts in the state of Maine. So I think that, the challenge that I would give to you is that start the conversation with your leadership. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, but let's at least give it a shot, because I think, the rest of the country operates on county governance for the most part, and that you don't need to go to your local town office to register your car or get a birth certificate or whatever, and the same thing they operate with county schools. And I'm not suggesting that that's a better mechanism. I think we all like our local schools, but the challenge is there. Let's see where we can take it.
I would just like to follow up with what Bailey was saying, because as I was having a similar thought, that I think it's hard when you have a group of people as large as this come through and try to make an actionable plan. And I think, picking a couple of, I'll call them cost centers, or the biggest obstacles or pain points that each individual, either community or school has, and says, okay, this is really hard for us. And I know one of the things, thinking about mechanic, I think Diane talked about it, or someone just did. I mean, where are some real pain points, and bringing them then to as okay, this is a measurable, we're going to look at this and we're going to make a decision, and then we will have a demonstrated effort. And I think, Bob, what it sounds like I'm hearing from you is that you're concerned, or you're wondering if these things are not happening, and if we're not seeing them happening, if we're not seeing change immediately, then these conversations aren't happening. And I think, as we're hearing, is it does take a lot. These things don't turn on a dime. I mean, you can't smush together 4 towns of fire service and be like, this is great. I think, and that is a humongous effort with a lot of things to consider. And yes, we should be asking the question, but I think not to be disappointed or assume then that nothing is happening. So I think picking some measurable, small dials we can move, I think what would be helpful. And I think picking something like, to say to the school, it's curriculum, you should switch curriculum. Maybe that's not a pain point for them. Maybe that, and I think really being able to reflect on what would help, because it's gotta, one of the things I was speaking actually with a member of the audience about is, what is in it for North Yarmouth? Like, how is helping Cumberland for say fire helping us? Like, I think Dave said we're supposed to be looking out for the citizens. So I just want to be very careful when we're talking about partnerships, that we're not doing it for the sake of looking like we're partnering, and making sure that it's very clear for each entity what is our benefit, and is this solving a question for us? And maybe it's a question that people assume we have and we don't.
Interesting. Thank you, Amy. That was well said. One of the things, just thinking about some introspection here, that I think that's been a hot topic of conversation that could be worth exploring, and someone's probably going to tell me it's not worth exploring, but insurance has been a big conversation. Everyone talks about like insurance increases. We've seen them. We did find a cost savings this year, but is there a world where maybe insurance is spread across 3 entities? Or the other big thing that we have seen a large increase over the last few years, especially with the evolution of technology, is software. So, are we using the same accounting systems? Can we get a deal on that? Those are things that I would think about that would be potential large cost savings. I know, Andrea mentioned paper and things of that nature. I don't know that we would see a ton of cost savings in that world, because I don't think paper is a big use here at the town. Maybe the school level, that's an option, but those are the things that come to mind for me when I think about how we could save money more. So
I have just 2 thoughts. One is we had a really big win with collaboration when it came to Denny Gallaudet, who sat on the school board, as everyone knows, and also is the chair of our sustainability subcommittee for the LCC. And just kind of looking for opportunities, Denny applied for a grant. Sorry, it is not a grant. It is a technical assistance award from the state. Christina, did I get it right?
I think it's a grant, but maybe a grant for technical assistance.
It's a grant for technical assistance.
There wasn't
right.
money, it was services. Right?
Services, right. But I think as as a district, you weren't able to apply, so he applied on your behalf. And I think that's a lot of cost savings, right? And it was an opportunity that he kind of identified, right? So are there also opportunities for us to be encouraging our community or our committees that we have to look for those grant opportunities, to look for, I think there's another grant where if two municipalities partner together, it's on efficiency, you get like 150K versus 75K each. So things like that. The other one that I think personally I would find worth exploring is we share Twin Brook, and if anyone's familiar with the dog trail, you can't really walk down the dog trail anymore because of the invasives. And so there are a lot of green spaces that we all share, Knights Pond, or we all use, right? And if we don't, and I think we also use the same town forester, do we both use Paul Larrabee? And these invasive management plans are not inexpensive. Spraying for invasives is really expensive, and if you bring in a group from out of state, which we've seen, they just decimate everything. And I think we hopefully could all agree that we really want our green spaces, which we use for recreation, and obviously you have your awesome 99-year lease on, but I think that could be something that we look to because it's not only equipment, but maybe looking to some cost sharing for invasive management, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Cumberland's like really going after the buckthorn and really going after the bittersweet if our neighbors aren't. So that would just be one thing that, I don't know, I'd be excited about. Chris, hit it.
I'm not gonna beat this. I think this is really a good idea for a workshop to sit down. Scott and I did a spreadsheet about 2 years back, and we sat down and we really compared apples and apples on what the town of Cumberland provides to the school and what the school provides to the town. I think I've shared this with North Yarmouth as well. And we put some value to it, so we knew we didn't think it was too lopsided. The town, again, Jeff had elaborated on Twin Brooks. We maintain both sides of Twin Brooks, the side for the Greeley Road and Tuttle Road, and the school's the biggest user. We utilize the school for our rec department, as you specified. The Valhalla Golf Course, we provide tee times for the golf team, the tennis team. The gym classes go down and use the tennis courts for pickleball. We do get paper from the school. We've gotten paper from the school for 10 years. And we price cast that out. Janitorial supplies, janitorial services. We have janitors in this building and at Valhalla. In return, we plow the parking lots in the campus. We remove the snow at the campus. We clean the catch basin. So there's all kinds of different things that we're trying to find cost savings, because if we weren't providing these services, the school would be paying for it, and we'd all be paying for it. So we're trying to find an equilibrium between cost savings and what's not cost savings. So this is probably a bigger conversation, as you said, a workshop, and I can re-provide, because there's different faces and new faces, provide the spreadsheet that I have, update it just a little bit, and you can review it, and then we can all sit down and say, okay, how can we mix North Yarmouth into this, or how can we do other things, or when the new campus comes, there's going to be more plowing. What's that going to look like? So, just a little bit of insight. So,
and I'd just like to add, so this is very much the thing that I've been talking about for the last 3 years, and I think got us to the place where we had that spreadsheet. I think the opportunity for us in North Yarmouth to understand exactly what's going in between in Cumberland and what the cost centers are there, and then what we are at the school, or we are getting from the school, and figuring out what we can provide for the school, whether it's space in, I know we provide a number of times, I think, space within West Custico Hall for different types of pieces. And then having Cumberland, I think we need to get to an apples to apples place where you know, the library use of West Custigo is being calculated into the relationship that we have, and then we pay for the library. Those different pieces that I think are missing within the cost balance and the cost structure. That's for me where I think I really want to explore this, because I mean, we struggle to get custodians and janitorial services, and would love to find way to work with the school to create that. Or, you know, we may have more opportunity to have time to come and do some, I mean, I don't know that plowing is the right thing, but just given that that's what you're talking about, there may be places where we in North Yarmouth are also interested in kind of coming into some of those partnerships and sharing. We would very much like to talk about paper and office supplies and janitorial supplies, please, as well as many other things. And I think I've been pushing for this conversation so often because I feel like there are places where we can all both continue to work together even more, but where, you know, it is imperative for me in representing the town of North Yarmouth to ensure that there is an apples to apples opportunity, and that that we can all sit down and look at it together. So I would love for us to be able to do that and to fill out the North Yarmouth side of that spreadsheet and come to figuring out how we have a 3D spreadsheet, I guess, so that we can look at all the different angles together, and to come to a place where we all feel like we are getting both like fair compensation for the places where we are supporting, and having opportunities to have some of those cost savings in the same way that the other institutions are all working together.
Andrew, did you?
Yeah, just sort of, Chris, going to your comment about the spreadsheet, I think it would be good to just sort of have that around just so people know what already is happening, because there's a lot. But I think another one could be made, I like spreadsheets, with, you know, to Bailey's comment about looking at other cost centers that we have of IT, you know, software, insurance, and stuff like that, and coming together with the relevant people from the three organizations. All right, well, you know, we're using this, and you know, should we be using the same services, and try to get a deal on that, because there's a lot that's already been doing, and I think just sort of another look, and maybe the answer is no. But I think that if we don't ask and don't come with, you know, the full list of like, all right, here's all the stuff that we have that could potentially be shared, then, you know, to Bob's comment, like if you don't try, you don't succeed, and we might not succeed anyway. But at least we'll know that, all right, there's a reason why we're not doing this together, as opposed to like, well, we're not doing it because we haven't, and we've always done it that way.
Bob, if I can ask, oh, sorry. Was I speaking over someone?
Oh, no, I was just going to say phone bills was the other big cost thing that we had a lot of conversation about. Sorry.
Him then Ron.
Okay. So, Bob, I apologize if you said this and I missed it, but you said that at this meeting, the other towns were jealous of the potential that we have. What were some things that they said that we would be able to do that they are not able to do?
I'm not sure that was the word that was used. Andrew
I
used
may
that.
paraphrasing.
I think that the conversation was in depth, and it was full encompassing. There was the idea of training, you know, with different, you know, entities. You know, why should one town do something different? You know, when we have mutual aid, we're all showing up for the same fire, and the same thing with a police call, and, you know, and really education too. You know, we do the same things, and so it makes sense to, you know, coordinate those efforts. We have a fire truck here in Cumberland, and the air packs require a personalized mouthpiece, and you have to know which one to take with you, and so we should be just having, you know, a standardization across the board. I think that, we've just scratched the surface with where we can go, in these conversations, and you're right. We're not gonna change the world tomorrow morning. It's gonna take a long time, but to my mind's eye, the conversation that we had a few weeks ago was the first conversation that's happened that I know of. Where 4 communities sat down and said, let's see what we can do. There's a program called, and I think Jeff probably is probably aware of it. It's called the Education Service Center, Maine Department of Education. I talked with them a couple of weeks ago about how we can consolidate services, and that she said that education service centers are a mechanism, and I can't tell you that I know much about it, but there are things at the state level that will encourage school districts to work together. So, again, I think the onus is on us to start thinking about the larger picture and having a conversation when the next time we get together in 6 months. Well, this is the conversation we had. This is the result that we've got. It may be minuscule, and some of these things may not be worthy of our time. But again, I think the effort has to be made to at least try.
Just a little bit of food for thought. Does anybody in this room think that the police service would be any different if Cumberland patrolled North Yarmouth? Do you think your EMT service would be any different if your EMT came from Cumberland to go to North Yarmouth? Do you think if you
I do, actually, because I think what we need to do is, we are not the group of people that need to be making that assessment. And I will say, but I do think this is a dangerous road to go down a little bit, because you think about those specific things and call times, and that is something with fire and rescue that I am worried about, because maybe you can sit on an unplowed road for another 10, 15 minutes, but if there's a difference between someone having a heart attack and someone trying to get from the Yarmouth North Road station and out to Christopher Road, which Leanne claims is still in North Yarmouth, but I doubt, is a big difference. It is a big difference. And so we might not feel that. But, and I'm not saying don't ask the question, but I'm not sure we're the right group to ask the question of.
What I'm getting at is dispatch. You could share dispatch services. There's so many ways. I've sat through numerous of these meetings, and we combine services. There's no question about it, but we can do better. We have to be mindful of our seniors in town. My parents are in their 80s. They bought their first house on Skillins Road for $10,200, brand spanking new. Their mortgage and their taxes were $54 a month. Now people are buying houses and they're paying $10,000 and $50,000 over asking price of a house. You used to be able to buy a house for $10,200. Now when you go buy a house, you're paying $50,000 over what somebody's asking for one. The school system in this is desirable. We all know it. Everybody wants to come to Cumberland. We've been the #1 school system 3 years in a row, Jeff? 5 years in a row.
Not that we're counting.
I mean, we're all in the same boat. I don't have a mortgage, but I rent my house from the school district in the town. I do. I don't own my house. I rent it. And I have properties that don't make me any money. I've got vacant property that I've paid more money in taxes than I paid for the land. Somebody needs to come up with a crystal ball to slow the train down. Mm-hmm. It just can't keep going the way it is. It cannot. It will implode. And I wish I knew the answer.
We've got 2 other agenda items. I would suggest that maybe a good next step, if there's consensus, would be for kind of the spreadsheet, which probably has to get tidied up a little bit, but maybe to be kind of disseminated around, so we at least can all kind of come back together with a on a level playing field of understanding what's already in play and then sort of assess what that low-hanging fruit is. I think there's probably some other conversations that can happen in the interim, like on invasives, but maybe no one wants to talk about invasives. But does everyone feel kind of good about that as a next step? Chris, Scott, are you and Diane like kind of comfortable with that?
Yeah, we should definitely review that again and update it.
Can I add one thing? I think knowing about the shared services that are already working would be helpful. I think also having information about the vendors that we're all using. Obviously, I care about cooperatives because I looked into it for the turf, but there are services maybe that weren't around 5 or 10 years ago that could be saving us money now, and we just don't know to ask. So Sourcewell, or we already use Omnia Partners maybe for some things, but they're free to join for nonprofits, and they just offer competitive nationwide pricing. And so there may be low-hanging fruit, just cheaper things that's the exact same, and we've been using the same vendor for 20 years, and just asking the question might save us some money. So maybe just listing out what vendors we use and then saying, does Sourcewell or Omnia or one of these, co-ops that are made to save nonprofits and towns and educational institutions money, are we using them or not? And if we're not, we should look at using them and save some money, because there's money to be saved, like on the Bobcat or on paper or on almost anything. So just to know what vendors we're using and then ask those questions, that could be some very low-hanging fruit just by poking a little bit. So
Poke away.
So just from what I'm hearing, we're going to clean up that spreadsheet, we're going to circulate that, and then also potentially task having a vendor list for the next, just want to think about the next meeting because I want to keep the conversation moving forward. So I think it would be helpful even if we provide a master list and then in an Excel format or some version of that, we can connect with Matt on that and circulate that as well, so we can think about a path forward after that, right?
We're not supposed to vote, but everyone's got to feel good about that. Cool.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing?
Please.
What if we had our budget committees, finance committees meet, and our public works of each town and the facilities, each group meet, versus, larger level, higher level? I don't know.
It's funny you say that because I was just thinking of mentioning to Matt that it would be helpful to task budget managers moving into the next fiscal year to find opportunities amongst their peers in the community. But I didn't want to get too into the weeds of tasking.
I'll just lay out that we're small. You're looking at our finance director as well as our town manager and as well a whole bunch of other things. So I'm very hesitant to say we're going to have lots of meetings of committees, because in the North Yarmouth reality, that probably means just a lot of meetings for Diane. So trying to figure out how we can optimize the time, because, we all know that staff time is a huge, staff pay, staff salaries is a huge part of all of our budgets. So, making sure that just keeping in mind that North Yarmouth is tiny compared to everybody else's staff, and that we can't justify having Diane go to 6 meetings where there could be 1 meeting to dive into some of those things in the initial.
Can I just counter? Could the budget committee meet to have the conversation and then take the information to Diane? Obviously, in a conversation, nobody would be making decisions. It would be finding common ground and then having the powers that be make those decisions.
I think we should talk about that. In North Yarmouth, we have a different finance model, and the way that our budgets are set up and the way that those are managed are different from the way that the school board and the town council work. So our budget committee is separate and is not a finance committee in the way. So it would need to be the select board who manages the finances. So
right, but they would
potentially
have the ability to connect the low-hanging fruits.
I think that the town manager, the town staff, and the select board are the are essentially the finance committee that acts in the rest of the town. So that, from my perspective, would be how we would move forward with that.
I think we're looking at a spirit of something. I think hammering out the details on how it actually happens probably could happen at another time. Yeah. But I think the spirit of what you were saying, as the folks who are really in the weeds with this can connect. And I think that sounds like, Bailey, something that you were already thinking about and on different levels.
Yeah, so I would say our immediate next step is to kind of get all of that information out there, and then we can figure out from there, once everyone has had a time to review, we've all had a time to digest, come back together, and then prioritize, of course, with information that makes sense, and then also, because you guys are still doing your budget, we won't be in the throes of budget season as well. Okay, so if everyone's good, we're going to move on to item 5, looking at future building projects and how the towns can support the district in an enrollment study to kind of understand what the projections are going to look like. Leanne, would it be okay if I punted to you on this? Or Jeff, or Scott, or anyone on the district?
So, and this is just like a little reminder of the enrollment studies that we currently receive one annually by a state association that does part of our, thank you, what's the name of it? NESDEC. As part of like annual dues, we get that. It's not in conversation with either towns, but certainly when we were planning for the new school project, we have this other individual who's been consulting with the district for a number of years, who had done sort of study after study after study as we were leading up to the one school project, to ensure that we were addressing anything that was already sort of in the works from both communities as part of that conversation. And so I think now we're about 2 years out from opening the new school, and I'll be giving lots of fun updates on the next item just related to that timeline, but just wanting to have a mechanism to understand if there are new big projects, housing projects that are underway or being planned for, that we are able to incorporate any of those new things into our projections, so that we don't get into a situation where we have to look at portables again in the longer term. So I think this is just sort of, I'm not sure currently if there is an actual mechanism, say every 6 months we like get an update that, the planning board has approved X, Y, and Z units. I look to those, more in touch with those details in the room around what would make sense, how often, but just to ensure that we are aware if there is new housing projects coming up that should be accounted for in our future projections.
So we talked about, go ahead.
Just going to add something. So back in 2016, I think it was, the 3 boards at that time, in a meeting just like this, decided together, and they commissioned the hiring of a consultant, which when the SAD ended up using multiple times after that because our enrollment kept going up, so we had to keep updating that. But the 3 boards jointly paid for and commissioned this consulting firm, which no longer exists, but we used one of the consultants to continue with us. And they looked at everything. They looked at not just the school enrollment, but the development, what was being planned, the comprehensive plans, all of that. And they provided a comprehensive report that took several months, I can't remember, 5 or 6 months, Scott, maybe something like that, and then presented it back at a joint meeting like this in public. It was extremely helpful. It was right at the very beginning of the school enrollment going up. So we then connected with that firm and continued. And I think we've done 3 more studies with one of the consultants that worked for that firm. So I think that's one of the reasons I mentioned to Leanne, it might be beneficial, considering that we're now building a school based on all the enrollment. What happens if we did that again with all 3 entities, to try to get in front of what might be happening in the future and what should we be expecting. And I think it was extremely helpful a decade ago to do that. And Bob, I don't remember if you were on one of the boards at the time, you might have been on the school board at the time, but that, I found that to be one of the most helpful things that we did. And it might have been Bill Shane that brought the idea forward at that time to really look at that. And I was mentioning that maybe we should do that again.
Or we should do it every X number of years.
Yeah. It was a shared cost.
That's theme for tonight.
I have some thoughts.
Go for it.
I'd be curious. I know data is a big part of a lot of decision making, and I hear it from everyone across the board, and this might be an offline conversation, but and the studies we do tend to be very expensive. So I start to wonder what is, as we look at things that continue to growth, what is the potential growth and, you know, coming off of the comp plan, what are things we're prioritizing? If it makes sense to think about or consider, if you're doing this annually, you're saying, right, for enrollment?
So annually, we get a report from NASDAQ that
Okay.
has, but is not in conversation with the towns. So it didn't really account for
Yeah.
things that they had just approved through their planning boards or projections and changes that they may have been making. It's just based on, you know, past data, what they were projecting for future enrollment. And it was never as accurate. I mean, it did say ours was going up, but it was certainly never as accurate when we were able to have the direct conversations with the communities in which made up the district.
That's what I struggle with those types of studies is I feel like we pay this large sum of money and then we get this data, and by the time we get the data, it becomes irrelevant. So how can we approach obtaining the data in a more efficient fashion that can be used in real time for things like budget planning and long-term planning? So I guess the question I would pose is there more of a bigger conversation about having someone in-house who is managing that type of data collection across all parties I think there's so many different ways that we could utilize someone or something like that, because I feel like we end up getting this data, then it becomes irrelevant, and then it becomes challenging to communicate with the community about it because it is irrelevant at that point. We don't have new data, then we don't get new data for a long time. There just seems to be a big lag in the data. I don't know, just some food for thought.
Well, if we knew the inputs, right? And
Yeah.
if we were able, and maybe it is working with a consultant who had done that local analysis before, saying, hey, we want to do this ourselves going forward. What were your inputs? And then you're right, we could gather those ourselves and input and update the model. I mean, it's a model, right?
Yeah. Because in particular, like when you ask that question to us, I think where we struggle is like we can only control so much of the land that is chosen to be developed, right? We have a certain amount of permits that are issued every year. We have people that own land. It's their right to develop the land. We can only predict so much. You know, we hear about it. We don't hear about it. If it goes, it doesn't go. So I think having the ability to flex that more real time creates a better working environment across all parties.
And I think the thing that caught us on our heels the past 10 years was the amount of turnover of current. It wasn't the development per se. It was more of the turnover, and some of that is market conditions. And as we know, those change.
They have?
They change.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Jesse, did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of data, I know, at least in Cumberland, Bridget Perry does an incredible job. I'm on the Lands and Conservation Commission, and she gives us a report every month on the number of solar permits and the amount of solar installed, because I'm on the Sustainability Committee, and we care, and the number of EV chargers. So the data is out there, at least in Cumberland. So, like, if we wanted to know, you know, number of new builds, and I assume North Yarmouth is the same, so it's, like, not as good as the consultant, but just to know how many more new units are coming on and how big they are, because then we can guess, like, okay, if it's 800 square feet, there's probably not a kid in it, but 3,000 square feet, maybe there is, right? So I think just as a first step, maybe just finding ways to, like, get that data from Bridget and pass it along to Scott or whoever, or the school board, like me, I'd make a spreadsheet out of it.
So we don't even have to guess, which is cool because JP Cog, we did a housing study and they, and I can't remember any details because that is not my forte, but what I do remember is that they were able to predict the kind of housing and estimate how many children would be in those homes, if a new build, and again, it's turnover, right? I mean, that is really the big, you can say like, oh my gosh, all these things are growing. Yes, and way more houses are turning over. So how do you predict that? But we found it really helpful to have GP Cog. And Diane, do you remember what it was called? I can't remember. It was like a housing study.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, but
We're doing an update on that too. We're having a scoping session next week. Remember, they got a grant.
That's right. Yes, yes. Which again was really helpful because then we could say, oh, okay, if this is going in, we can estimate that there's going to be 12 more kids or something along those lines.
Yeah. If you could share that with us.
Yeah, that would be, and they would
for those of us who are interested. I mean, I'll make a spreadsheet
Oh,
and a
Jesse,
model.
you
It
would
won't be
love.
very good,
I
but
think
I'll-
I've seen this report. You would love it. And I'm very jealous, and I've said this before, of the relationships that the towns have with JP Cog. Not only do they have
Amazing.
fun events that we're not invited to as a school district,
Correct.
but I think that there's lots of opportunities, like grants and information that gets shared that we don't have a mechanism similar to that. And for our surrounding school districts that are Falmouth and Yarmouth, they're part of the town. So they are privy, I think, to some of those things that we're sort of a little left. I'm feeling left out if I haven't made that clear. Yeah.
I'll just add, our request to GP Cog for the housing study was based on the housing study that was done in Cumberland. So, that pieces of information for both towns already exist. And I'll also put out a pitch for GP Cog does Money Mondays at 9 a.m. every single Monday for 15 minutes, and usually it's only 8. They do a highlight of some type of grant or funding opportunity or loan or multiple that are available for folks in our region. And sometimes they are school-based, so they're great and really helpful, and I think has been a really useful tool for us in highlighting other funding sources as well. Just to, so you don't feel left out. Anybody can join. You don't have to be a member.
I just want to add in, on this topic of data. I work in software technology. I'm a data nerd. I love a spreadsheet. This also is, we should be thinking about this as a shared service, right? I think there's some of this conversation. Data is, information is expensive, data is expensive, but the cost is going to go down precipitously. Like the cost of software development and gathering and aggregating data with the technology that's out there, with the advent of AI code generation, all that, it's going to go down. So we should be thinking about this not only in terms of shared services and cost of technology, but also how do we take that and aggregate that and learn from it. I mean, all of us sitting here, we're already dinosaurs in this age. Like our kids are going to be the ones that take this and run with it. But there are opportunities that are there now, and I think to the point I think Ron made about like if you look at like the ballooning cost of things and where we're going, it is unsustainable. But the way you find efficiencies is by leveraging that data, that information that's there. It's not going to solve all your problems, and it's very hard. But there are things right now that we can be doing, and we should be thinking strategically that this is where we need to be going in the future.
So, Carl, you're saying I should feed both housing studies into ChatGPT and ask them to do a
No,
project?
no, because you'll get garbage. But it'll be.
But it'll be quick.
It'll be a fast and you'll get really fast garbage. But it won't be long. 18 months from now, that might be a completely different answer.
So just hopefully a quick question. Once the new school is built, we will have hopefully excess capacity. How much excess capacity do we have? Because Cumberland's going to continue to grow. North Yarmouth is going to continue to grow. There are always going to be people, I think, that are going to want to come here. And so we need to manage that. And at some point, they're going to have to, you will have to have a fun conversation about another, school or portables, unfortunately, or something like that. And sort of what's I think for us, it would help to know the timeline on that of, we've got a capacity of like 100 kids and then we're full again, or it's 1,000 kids, or whatever it is. Just for us, that would be helpful with the types of subdivisions that people want to put in, or if they want to put in multifamilies or anything like that. It would be good to know, all right, to have that in the back of our mind of like we're inching up closer, or we're just barreling right through to this brick wall.
Great question. And I know it's been a couple years since we looked at, last year, which seems like a lifetime ago. So we did two things when putting the plan together. One was for the initial build that there was excess, there's flexible space to account for. I think we tried to look out about 10 years of those projections, at least 10 years, to provide flexible space within the building. The last thing we wanted to do was have it open full. Nowhere near that. So there's a lot of flexible space that is going to be at all of the buildings once the new one opens. And then we are also building, the way that the building was being structured was making it easy to add additional blocks of classrooms if needed 10 plus years down the road. That can be sort of quickly added into the building itself without needing to do any more structural work. Everything would be ready to put these classrooms on top of the first floor. And so, and we're building out an additional section at MIW just again to account to have for that flexibility. So we looked at it in two ways to be able to account for future growth. But you're absolutely right about subdivisions. For a short period of time, I lived in Colorado, and what I saw, a lot of development, but the first thing that when those developments started was a school and like a fire station. Like that's what happened first. And I feel like Maine, we're just used to losing population, and especially our schools, so much of the consolidation and the money that's going to schools for capital and infrastructure is because they've been losing students, not gaining them. And I just feel that we're maybe as a state, a lot of our rules and laws, and I know you can't use TIF for school stuff, like they're not for a community that's growing, because it hasn't happened for a while in a lot of places, especially a growing school district. Our surrounding communities aren't seeing the enrollment growth that we're seeing.
So I love this conversation. I think at the heart of where the community is challenged, obviously, is the cycle of good school. People want to move. People, values of their houses go. They move out. More people come in. And I kind of want to push a little bit further than Leanne even said in terms of, being informed. I think we need even more engagement, like as an entity, consult on some decisions that are made at the town levels that could impact our enrollment, because we have a lot of inefficiencies at the school because we don't know, what's coming our way or what to predict in 10 years and when do we build this and are we going to be at this spot. So I think the more that we can have, even if it's another subcommittee that's purely based off of like town enrollment, the more engagement we can have in some of those decisions, even if we're not decision makers, but we're just there to consult or to inform or to know that like, hey, this is coming down the line, this is a decision that could impact us. I think it needs to be a very regular cadence of that. And so we get stuff by listening to your meetings, but I think one of the onus is like a lot of decisions that are made at this table and at the select board table come down and hit us, and we're late to the party. And so I just want that to be recognized. Like we've grown and our budget has grown and as a response to that, but we've also had to kind of remain lean and flexible because we don't know exactly how things are going to grow. And so I just think that we, as a committee, as members of that, would really benefit, and our towns would benefit if we could consult on this is the impact on the school that's going to have during some of your decisions that might make, might impact population. So we need I feel like I'm advocating for another subcommittee that's like a population change subcommittee where people are discussing impacts of growth plans. Yeah, planning board stuff. Yeah, we could be on the planning board of some sort.
We have an opening as a.
All right, so I think in one, he's not here, he's in Italy, Mr. Sturgis, but we talked a little bit about this coming into this meeting, and he thinks it's a great idea to provide and is happy to proactively send out updates to you based on what's gone through the planning board, anything that we're seeing from a project perspective. Just because it goes to the planning board doesn't always mean it's going to be filled with people, because we've seen projects fail. Never, right? Have you ever seen a project fail? No, never. But to kind of share that information more proactively, so it's coming into your inbox versus you finding out retroactively. So I think that's something that in the immediate term we could do, as well as share those housing studies. We have a new one from GPCOG we could share with you as well. I think that would be a good next step. Lots of nodding. Okay, cool beans. And then maybe at our next meeting, especially with that kind of dialogue around sharing data, that could be something that we could look to reassess. We'll be getting some good data as part of our comprehensive plan survey. Fortunately, you have a representative on the comprehensive plan who will be able to share all of those really awesome updates with you. Right, Jesse? Yeah, totally. But also in kind of the same way that, Megan has graciously come and given us updates at the council. I think that also we could all pop into each other's meetings and give you some updates when they're relevant, if everyone would be up for that too. Cool beans. Okay. All right, just taking a peek at the clock, since we have 17 minutes left. Do you want to give us a little update on the school, Leanne? I know how much you love to talk.
There's nothing going on there, right? Yes. And so just a couple, looking back to a little under a year ago now, which is hard to believe. Thank you to our taxpayers who approved the One Campus project. And it has certainly been a whirlwind since. And thank you, Cumberland, for graciously hosting, continuing to host the district in all of our school buildings as we expand, because we know we've been really reliant on relationships and communication over this past year to get to the point that we are today, which is very close to a groundbreaking ceremony. But first, I want to also thank the building committee. Tim is our chair of our building committee. Thank you, Tim. But we also, speaking of lots of meetings, Bailey, as was mentioned before, serves on the committee as well as Amy, and having the seats of the select people at the table for the building committee, along with our incredible community members and staff and teachers, has really made this process feel much more collaborative, and has created opportunities to problem solve, because we've certainly encountered things that we needed to have close communication on. What are we doing or not doing about street expansion? Where are we going to put all that arsenic? And I've just been really grateful to have, both the building committee, but also the relationships to be able to move this project forward, to really be able to hopefully effectively deal with the enrollment that has been really at our district's door for at least a decade. I think it's probably, I don't know when the first portable went in, but it's been 9 years, so almost a decade that we've had portables. And while they work well in the short term, we did not want that to be our community's long-term solution. And so just a couple high-level updates. So it was split into a couple parts. One, the first that went forward was moving of the maintenance building, because that really sits in the middle of the space where the new school is going to be developed. And so that contract went out to bid, and that work has begun. If you're in the area of the school, you can see fencing going up. I think a hole was dug. That's really exciting. And then there was two parts of the turf field that went out to bid, and we've been able to move forward with some of the groundwork for the turf field. Thank you, Jesse, for chairing that committee. And we were able to get that groundwork and also the turf ordered, and so that work has begun as well, so underway. And then just last week, the third and largest part of the bid package was the school itself, which is actually is more than the school. It is also the addition to MIW. It is also redesigning traffic patterns and parking and everything that is going to make this one campus work. So that is now out to bid, and we had a number of qualified bidders, and we're really, really happy that I think hopefully we'll have 6 to 8 bidders on that work. And that bid opening is on June 10th, will be for the new school bid opening. And every day of every week almost, there's meetings that are going on, whether it's pre-construction meetings or DEP permits or talking about the soil remediation plan. There are so many things, not only that our architects and team and our administrators are working on, but also that the town of Cumberland has been really engaged in as well. But the exciting groundbreaking ceremony is on June 12th, and it's going to be a party, I guess. I would like to ask our communications committee of the building committee to give a little shout out to what to expect.
May I formally and cordially invite all of you to the groundbreaking ceremony for the new school project on June 12th, which is a Thursday, at 6 p.m. on campus, park near the GCA. There will be a party. There's going to be cake, refreshments, a band, speeches, gold shovels.
Giant scissors. Will there be giant scissors?
Giant.
That's when we open. All right.
Yeah.
Look at that, shared services right there.
You should have received an email today. If you did not, I am inviting you. Please join us. Rain or shine.
What great timing for that to go out today. So yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
So yes, very exciting to really bring our communities together. I mean, opening a new school is a very big deal in building a new school, and we're just so proud of being able to bring this forward. And then just a couple other dates. So the expected completion date of the turf field project will be mid-August, and the expected completion date of the facilities and maintenance building will be late November. Maybe we can get some scissors there. And the expected completion date of the new school, MIW edition, and all of the other wonderful One Campus project components will be June of 2027. And as I touched on earlier, there's so much more than just the building and all of the work with the architects that it's going into getting ready for June. It's a complete re-rostering of buildings and grades and configurations and how different grade configurations work together, because we are asking a lot of our especially pre-K to 8th grade teachers, support staff, principals to really rethink and reimagine some of the models that have been used in our schools, because they're going to be changing, like whom is populating each of those buildings, and to also recognize how much work is going into trying to get that right for the students, but also for the staff who need to support them, and really using it as an opportunity for some things that may have been talked about for a while, to do in our schools, find some efficiencies in our programming, because we already know we're having to go through this big change. So what are some other opportunities of things that we can consider as part of this big change? So as a reminder, the new school will be pre-K to first grade, the current MIW will be second to fourth, and GMS will be fifth to eighth. And the high school remains the high school. And everyone always usually asks, is it big enough? And the answer is yes. The high school has always supported sort of the Cumberland, North Yarmouth used to have a bigger school population. A number of schools were closed a decade to 2 decades ago. So the high school was used to supporting a larger population, and there's some different things with class configurations that could happen, that there is flexibility there. So we're feeling good about the high school, so that will remain as is. Okay. Is that high level?
Folks, did you have something? Does anyone have any questions for anyone?
For Tim.
Christina.
Can I add a couple things?
Do you want a mic?
I just want to add 2 things, just so everyone's aware. The topic of the cost of schools and property taxes is very alive and well in Augusta. I want to draw your attention to 2 bills to watch, one in particular on future school construction costs. The DOE, as well as these bills, are focused on like how the formula is not working to line up and wait and get approved for a school to be built, et cetera, et cetera. So it's acknowledged it's out there and it's not working. So there are 2 particular bills, and who knows which one will finally land. But one in particular, it's well, there's 2. Rep. Boyer's out of Cape Elizabeth, and you know they've also experienced a lot of failed referendums, and they keep trying. I think their last one passed. I'm not sure, but
no.
Okay, well, there's that. So she had a proposal. She had a proposal, a 75-25, instead of having the schools funded 100% by the state, which sounds great, but some districts may not need that, and so why wait? And if you can fund part of it. So she had a 75-25%, and that was still flexible for some communities if they couldn't reach the 25%. That particular bill failed in committee. However, that concept was moved into another bill, which you can look up. It's LD 1892, and it's Michael Brennan's out of Portland, a longtime legislator, a lot of experience in getting bills through. So I'm just putting it out there to be aware of. I mean, when, I guess I shouldn't say should, but when we need another school someday, long after we're all gone. This particular bill, if it gets through, it has some totally new concepts in terms of like having a financing authority specifically for schools that would issue bonds. So instead of paying that endless increasing interest, it would have loans that would be zero financing, and it would have cash allotments. It's a different way of looking at the whole thing. Instead of queuing up, waiting, only 9 out of, I don't remember the number, but it was however many,
60,
scores of schools waiting and desperately needing repairs. And the formula right now, it's acknowledged that what's happening is effectively schools will wait. They know that if their school plight is more desperate, you don't repair whatever and you move up on the list.
Right.
So that whole system is not working. It's definitely acknowledged. So DOE has its plan it's working on. These are the bills. 1892 is the one that stands a real chance of of having something happen. So I just wanted to put that out there, that there's an awareness and there's some movement toward getting something done. Secondly, I just want to, again, make a shout out to being creative and thinking about how to cooperate. I don't know how many were aware of how Jesse was fighting so hard to get an RSU, us, to be able to access cooperative purchasing as opposed to, we're not allowed to right now as RSUs. We can only do competitive bidding, which obviously if we can do a cooperative purchase as we attempted with the turf field itself, not all the construction underneath, but the actual turf field itself, it would have been considerable savings. So that reflects on other possible purchase in the future. So I did have a bill in. Bad news, it went down. However, it went down because it was so in the weeds that even the legal analysts didn't understand what is this RSU, cooperative versus competitive, the whole thing. I mean, everyone was sort of flummoxed by it. So nobody really knows why it was set up that way, but it was set up that way when RSUs were created back when. So the good news is, though it failed, what I got out of it was a letter that's going to, which is the next strongest thing, is a letter that's going to the AG's office to settle the dispute. Because not a dispute, but it's what our perception of, like, why can't we access these cooperatives? Because regular municipal schools can. You just go out and join a cooperative, and why can't we? So that's one perception of it. But DAFs, if you're familiar with that, I had never heard of it. The Department of, I won't even get this right, the Department of basically Financial Services that does all things if you're trying to build this or that or the other thing, government-wise. It controls what you do. Big entity I'd never heard of. And they were completely opposed to it. So the good news is that disconnect between what we think we should be able to do and what we're being told we can't do as a RSU, the Attorney General is going to settle that one. Just not in the court or anything, just decide like, yep, no, that's being interpreted this way. But it's possible that maybe we can. So it's a very creative new way that somebody thought of that might end up working in our favor. If it does, we can get a lot that way. So, but we just need the clearance so we don't get caught up in a lawsuit, which is fair. So, anyway, stay tuned.
No lawsuits. No. We're trying to save on our legal costs, right? Awesome sauce. Well, unless anyone has anything else, we will adjourn 1 minute early just to be efficient with your time. Does anyone have anything else? All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Later, Gators. Bye.
People need to.
I know.
Don't forget the snacks over there.
Oh, snacks, and there's water up here too.
I came in that door.